He grew up in broken streets and bright dreams. But Leonardo DiCaprio learned that real success isn't found in fame. It's built through purpose, patience, and discipline. There are dreamers, there are workers, and then there are those rare few who become both people who imagine the impossible and then spend decades building it. Leonardo Wilhelm DiCaprio belongs to that rare breed. To most of the world, he is the face of Hollywood perfection: sharp suits, flawless acting, red carpets. But behind the fame lies a story that has nothing to do with glamour and everything to do with grit. He once said, "Only you and you alone can change your situation." That sentence wasn't a slogan. It was survival instinct. He grew up not among spotlights, but sirens in Los Angeles neighborhoods, where drugs and poverty outnumbered opportunity. His parents separated when he was a year old. His mother, Irmelin, a German immigrant, worked multiple jobs just to keep the lights on. They lived in cheap apartments near broken alleys and occasional violence. Yet inside that tiny home was something powerful: belief. His mother saw his imagination and refused to let it die. She took him to museums, auditions, and schools across the city, even when she barely had bus fare. As a child, Leonardo wasn't the obvious Hollywood type. Too thin, too expressive, too different from the safe, polished faces that dominated 1980s television. He auditioned hundreds of times and was rejected almost every week. Casting agents told him his face was too intense, but he kept showing up. He later said that acting was never about fame for him. It was about curiosity. "I just wanted to understand people," he recalled. "I wanted to feel what they felt." That empathy became his weapon in an industry built on appearance. His first roles came slowly: commercials, small TV parts, a few short-lived series. Then came This Boy's Life, 1993, where a 19-year-old DiCaprio stood beside Robert De Niro and held his own. The performance was raw, desperate, emotional. Critics noticed. But what set him apart wasn't talent alone. It was discipline. On set, he kept a notebook of observations: every line, every emotion, every silence that De Niro delivered. He studied the craft like a scientist studies stars, with obsession. That obsession paid off. The next year, he played a boy with intellectual disabilities in What's Eating Gilbert Grape. It was a role so delicate that one wrong gesture could have turned it into parody. Instead, DiCaprio delivered one of the most authentic performances of the decade. He was nominated for an Academy Award at just 19. Fame arrived, but so did fear. Success that early can destroy an artist. Many fade, distracted by comfort or ego. But Leonardo made a different choice. He said, "I didn't want to be famous. I wanted to be good." He turned down easy scripts and took risks that confused Hollywood. While others chased box office guarantees, he chased directors who scared him: Scorsese, Cameron, Nolan, Tarantino. Each film became a masterclass in endurance. When Titanic came in 1997, it was chaos, freezing water, endless nights, overwhelming pressure. The studio doubted him, but he understood the power of story. He knew that behind every blockbuster, there's a beating human heart. He poured himself into the role of Jack Dawson, a poor artist who believes in love more than survival. When Titanic released, it didn't just succeed, it became a global phenomenon. Overnight, he became the face of a generation. Millions screamed his name, tabloids followed his every step, and every magazine wanted a piece of him. But fame is a storm that destroys anyone without anchor. Leonardo stepped away from it. "I needed to disappear," he said later. "Otherwise, I'd lose myself." Instead of feeding the hype, he used the silence to rebuild, studying, reading, and redefining what kind of man he wanted to be. In his 20s, while most stars chase luxury, he chased longevity. He worked on scripts that demanded emotional depth, not just stardom. The Beach, Catch Me If You Can, Gangs of New York. Every role showed a different side of struggle, identity, deception, morality. He became the rare actor who could play a hero, a villain, and a philosopher within the same scene. But behind the artistry was an even greater passion forming quietly: the planet. Growing up, he'd seen pollution coat the Los Angeles sky like fog. He never forgot that image. As his influence grew, so did his purpose. In his 30s, he began investing his wealth not in excess, but in environmental work. He founded the Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation, dedicated to wildlife preservation and climate activism. He used his celebrity not as decoration, but as a megaphone. "I've seen the world," he said, "and it's changing faster than we're acting." What's remarkable is how he balances activism with art. He treats both with the same seriousness: preparation, patience, presence. On set, he's meticulous. Directors say he arrives hours early, studies every scene, rewrites lines until they sound real. He's allergic to mediocrity. He believes the audience can sense laziness. "You can't fake truth," he says. "They'll feel it." When he worked with Martin Scorsese on The Aviator, he spent months studying Howard Hughes's OCD, journaling in character, watching rare footage frame by frame. That performance earned him an Oscar nomination. But more importantly, it changed how he saw mental health. "It taught me compassion," he said. "Everyone's fighting something invisible." Through his films, Blood Diamond, Inception, The Wolf of Wall Street, he explored greed, morality, illusion. He called acting a mirror for the human condition. Each project was chosen not for popularity, but for purpose. He said no to sequels and superhero franchises that could have made him richer, choosing instead to build a career of substance. That's what makes his journey motivational restraint. The courage to say no when yes is easy. Even when The Revenant, 2015 came, a project shot in freezing wilderness for months, with real injuries and endless setbacks, he didn't flinch. "You can't fake endurance," he told interviewers. He ate raw fish, crawled through icy rivers, and delivered a performance that looked like pain because it was pain. When he finally won the Academy Award after decades of nominations, he didn't celebrate his fame, he spoke about the earth. "Let us not take this planet for granted," he said. "I do not take tonight for granted." That was his essence, using victory as a vessel for something bigger. Yet Leonardo's motivation isn't just about achievement. It's about evolution. He believes mastery is never finished. "I'm still learning," he says. "The day I think I've figured it out, I'm done." That humility keeps him hungry. In an industry built on ego, he stays a student. The more Leonardo DiCaprio achieved, the more he understood that real greatness has little to do with applause. Awards gather dust. Awareness endures. In his 30s and 40s, when many actors measure life by box office numbers, he started measuring his days by the amount of truth he could live. Fame gave him access, but access is useless without purpose. He chose to use that spotlight as a mirror, turning it outward toward the world that had given him everything and was now quietly burning. He began speaking not as a celebrity, but as a citizen. "Climate change," he said, "is not a movie. It's happening in real time." He visited rainforests in Indonesia where smoke choked the sky, Arctic shelves where ice collapsed under his boots, villages where children walked miles for clean water. He funded researchers, conservationists, indigenous communities. He didn't do it for headlines. He did it because silence felt like betrayal. Every trip reshaped him. Every conversation rewired his definition of impact. "I realized," he said, "that the most valuable role I'll ever play is the one off-screen, the man who tries to leave the planet better than he found it." Yet the transformation wasn't moral posturing. It was disciplined, almost scientific. He approached activism with the same rigor he applied to film. He read studies, attended summits, sat with scientists, learning vocabulary the press never bothered to print. He understood that credibility is built the same way as a character through homework. The world expected glamour. He offered substance. When he addressed the United Nations in 2014 as messenger of peace, his voice trembled not with nerves, but conviction. "You can make history, or you will be vilified by it." Those words carried the same intensity as his most famous lines. But this time, there was no director-only duty. Behind that global voice remained the same quiet man who still sketches ideas in notebooks and rewatches films to learn from the smallest mistakes. Colleagues say he's the last to leave set, the first to arrive, the actor who never hides behind fame when a retake is needed. He believes mastery demands maintenance. When younger performers ask for advice, he tells them, "Fall in love with the process, not the praise." That sentence is the skeleton of his entire career. He treats each project like a laboratory. For The Departed, he immersed himself in Boston's underworld, listening more than speaking. For Inception, he studied dreams and psychology until fiction felt factual. For The Wolf of Wall Street, he explored excess not to glorify it, but to expose the emptiness behind indulgence. His performances are often uncomfortable because they reveal how close greed and vulnerability live inside us. That honesty makes his characters unforgettable. They are human first, heroic later. But what truly makes Leonardo DiCaprio's journey motivational is not his craft, it's his constancy. He has lived decades under scrutiny without losing curiosity or compassion. When interviewers ask how he avoids burnout, he smiles and says, "I step into nature." The ocean is his cathedral, the forest his retreat. He spends days on environmental expeditions with no entourage, just notebooks and cameras. He listens to silence until it becomes instruction. That balance between intensity and introspection is what keeps him alive creatively and spiritually. He's often described as mysterious, but the mystery is simply focus. In an age of oversharing, he practices restraint. He lets the work speak. He once said, "You don't need to explain sincerity, people feel it." That principle guides his choices both on and off screen. When paparazzi flash their lenses, he lowers his eyes and keeps walking. When causes call for help, he steps up quietly. He doesn't preach simplicity, he practices it. There were years when roles slipped away. When critics questioned his selectivity, he ignored the noise. "Patience is a weapon," he said. "If you wait long enough, the right story finds you." That patience led to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a film that reflected on the passage of time, fading fame, and creative survival. Playing a washed-up actor, Leonardo was essentially confronting his own future, and he did it with humility, humor, and grace. Audiences saw not arrogance, but acceptance. He often speaks about fear, not as an enemy, but as fuel. "If a project doesn't scare me, it's not worth it." That philosophy mirrors the same courage his mother taught him in childhood, to keep showing up when rejection stings. Fear became his compass, pointing toward growth. When he produced documentaries like Before the Flood and Ice on Fire, he wasn't chasing profit. He was translating fear into education. He believed storytelling could still save the world not through fantasy, but through facts wrapped in emotion. Despite his activism, he never abandoned art. He merged the two. Every film now carried a seed of awareness. Don't Look Up was satire, yes, but also sermon, a desperate plea for attention in a distracted world. He said afterward, "We made it to make people laugh and then think. If they only laugh, I've failed." That dual intention, entertain and enlighten, defines his legacy. Privately, he guards his peace. No social media storms, no public meltdowns, no need to prove his worth every hour. He builds his life around stillness. Friends describe dinners at his house, where phones stay in another room, and conversations wander into philosophy, astronomy, and art. He loves listening more than speaking, observing the way light hits a glass, or how people reveal themselves when they feel safe. These habits keep his performances fresh, because he's always studying life with the same wonder he had as a boy, watching traffic lights glow on the cracked streets of Los Angeles. He once reflected, "I don't see acting as pretending. I see it as remembering that everyone you meet is fighting for meaning." That empathy seeps into every portrayal. He can make greed look tragic, ambition look sacred, guilt look human. His secret isn't imitation, it's immersion. He becomes a mirror for emotions we're too afraid to admit. When he finally won his Oscar for The Revenant, he stood on that stage not as a conqueror, but as a messenger. Years of being overlooked didn't make him bitter, they made him better. "It's easy to get lost chasing validation," he said later. "The work is the reward." That humility turned the trophy into a symbol of perseverance rather than ego. Today, in his late 40s, Leonardo DiCaprio represents more than Hollywood success. He represents sustainability, both in art and in life. He's proof that discipline and conscience can coexist, that you can be powerful without being loud, influential without being invasive. He teaches that the real revolution begins when talent finds a purpose larger than itself. When young artists ask how to last as long as he has, he tells them 3 things. Guard your curiosity like treasure. Let excellence be your rebellion, and give your voice to something that outlives you. Those aren't slogans, they're survival codes. He believes every generation must find its own Titanic, a cause worth sinking comfort for. And perhaps that's why his story resonates far beyond cinema. Because beneath the awards, Beneath the aura stands a boy from a broken home who decided that environment, art, and empathy were not separate subjects, that they were one curriculum for living fully. He reminds us that success without significance is just noise, and that greatness measured only in fame fades faster than film reels. He says, "Legacy isn't what people remember about you. It's what keeps working after you're gone." That's why he invests in projects that plant forests, restore coral reefs, and protect species that will never know his name. That quiet form of immortality to be useful drives him more than any role ever could. And if you listen carefully to his interviews, there's always a gentle warning tucked between the lines. Don't wait until disaster to discover discipline. Don't wait for applause to start acting out of purpose. Don't wait for the world to tell you who you are. Because in the end, the only person who can change your situation is you. Leonardo DiCaprio's life is proof that purpose and patience can coexist with ambition, that humility can live inside a legend, and that evolution is the most beautiful form of success. His career spans decades, but his message fits in one sentence. Keep learning, keep serving, keep believing. So when you feel unseen, unacknowledged, or unheard, remember his mother's lesson and his own words. Only you and you alone can change your situation. Take one honest step toward the life you want, even if the world isn't watching. Show up to your own story like he showed up to every audition that told him no. Build your dream like he built his career with patience, precision, and purpose. Because the journey of Leonardo DiCaprio isn't just about stardom. It's about stewardship of craft, of conscience, of the planet. He teaches us that you don't need a script to act with integrity, and you don't need a camera to make a scene worth remembering. The real movie is the one you live every day, and if you direct it with courage, compassion, and clarity, it will inspire more people than you'll ever meet.